Welcome back as we take our first steps into high rank. So the very first thing they send you out to fight in high rank is a Yian Kut-Ku. Not really a difficult monster on his own, but the twist here is that there's however, it's still basically the same that you fought in older games. So it pecks at the ground a little bit, spits out some fireballs. Although I will say the animation for the fireballs in this one looks a lot cooler. At first, I actually thought they had given the thing a blast because the fireballs that spit out actually look thick, almost as if they have some sort of sticky fluid in them and stuff. So, I don't know. It's sort of a missed opportunity in my opinion. Instead of just sticking with traditional fire, it could have been a surprising early blast weapon. But whatever. They look cool. They look pretty because of the updated graphics. And it's not really that challenging to fight if it weren't for the massive other ones around. You do get some assistance in this fight, whether you want it or not. And by the way, most of the high rank fights that you'll see, I go ahead and throw out the SOS flare because between the story fights, at this point where it actually opens up and wants you to farm up hunter rank, I actually do a couple random fights here and there. I may post some of those, but the main things that I'm going to put in this series are just the ones you have to do for story progression. So, I say story progression pretty loosely at this point because the amount of story that actually develops from here on out is very minimal. Just one or two little beats in it just kind of resolves the Archveld storyline started in low rank. But anyway, this guy, you just tough it out. If you are smart and actually use a large dung bomb at the very beginning, it'll scatter the whole pack, and then it's not an issue to deal with. Like, once you get it by itself, no problem at all. Super easy creature to fight. I haven't actually went out and fought them intentionally outside of the event west since this came out. So, forgettable, sort of, like, not really a good reason why there wasn't one in low rank, because this fight is not that much harder than low rank, and it's kind of hard to compare high rank to low rank without actually fighting the same monster. So usually you end out doing, and I say usually, I mean like traditionally in previous games, you end up fighting something that you have faced in low rank pretty quickly into high rank. That way you get some point of comparison. But I know they've been trying to sort of get away from some of the more traditional elements of the games and move more towards a bit of a fresher take on the series, which is not bad because the core is staying basically the same. The fighting style is just smoother. Some of the difficulty people complain about from the older games being missing had very little to do with skill and had more to do with the fact that hitboxes were not nearly as predictable. So in other words, the hitboxes weren't consistent. And your weapons didn't necessarily function as smoothly as they do now. They've smoothed out a lot of the combo paths to make using your weapon a little bit easier, and made it a little bit easier to break away from it. You still have to kind of think through your commitment. If your goal is to actually play perfectly, which is clearly not my goal. My goal is just to face tank the game. Then you've got a little bit of work to do. And that's kind of what you just have to learn. Like, if this is not your first Monster Hunter, then some of the difficulty is going to come from what sort of rules you impose on yourself. Because once you've learned these games, it's just like the Dark Souls series. They don't really maintain their difficulty all that long until you get to the ultra high-end creatures, which never really come with release. It has happened before that there's been a release monster that was pretty challenging, but it doesn't happen very often. Most often, on a high-ranked Monster Hunter game, the initial roster is just not that difficult. But it's because Master Rank, or as it used to be known, G Rank, is substantially harder than High Rank is. Like, you go from being able to take a couple hits before you die, which is standard in High Rank, to a lot of one-shots. The only creature that really has a one-shot in any rank in this game is Jindahad. I mean, I'm sure there's some instances where you can get one-shot by Archveld or a few others if you have the right blight when they hit you with their strongest attacks. But he's the only one that I know offhand that has a deliberate one-shot mechanic. It's just the way the game is. Getting used to this stuff is actually a sign of progression. If it's feeling easier to you than World did, congratulations, you're probably better than what you were when you started World. If this felt as hard as World did, then you've not actually grown any as a player, which is also not really a problem if you're still enjoying yourself. At the end of the day, if you're having fun, that's all that actually matters. You're not going to pump as much time into it as you may have once you get really good at it, but you don't need to. You're being more efficient. But, whatever. I can get some of the complaints people have, but some of the complaints that you see playing is the same sort of stuff that you see every single time a new Monster Hunter comes out. So don't let some of the negativity online drown out your own. If you're enjoying the game, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. Keep playing what you enjoy, and there's plenty of ways to play this that can satisfy about anyone. Yeah, the multiplayer is a little finicky to get working, but it's still there. If you really don't want to play with other people, but you kind of want to pseudo experience, then you can use the SOS system to call mercenaries. And they're actually really good. That's one of the reasons why I've left them on, because they kind of accelerate the hunts a bit. So, from my perspective, it makes it easier to get a little more fun into the video, which is one of the reasons why I call them. Now, if I hit a point where I'm going to do some challenge runs, they won't be part of it. But I'm coming up with some ideas for some rules for something like that maybe in the future. But for now, I'm just going to continue playing my own mediocre way and demonstrating that you don't have to be perfect or to be excellent to actually make your way through the game. You just have to be willing to try and you need to learn a little bit about how your weapon works. You should find a weapon that has a combo system that works for you. And keep that in mind. A lot of people just try to stick to a weapon because they like the aesthetic of it, but the play style of it doesn't match with what they find enjoyable as a play style. You need to find one that actually, when you're executing the correct combos for it, that is what feels good to you. And worry a little bit less about the aesthetics, because every single weapon in the game has at least a couple versions of itself that look really cool. Like, I haven't found a single weapon yet where there are none of them that look appealing. All of them have some that look cool. And I even like the Ardian weapons. I know a lot of people are complaining about them, but the Ardian and the Guild Workshop, I think the name of them is. Between those two branches, if you remember, well, if you've been playing long enough to remember the old Rusted, and I think it was Artifact. Maybe it was not Artifact, but there was a one level above Rusted weapons that you could find and try. The aesthetics of those two weapons I've been seeing pop up in those two categories. Like the Ardian gun lance looks like a higher level version of the Rusted gun lance. Or the Rusted lance, I should say. Same thing with the lance. Like it looks like the Rusted version of it for the Guild Workshop weapon. But I don't know. I like their appearance. I don't think that it's unreasonable for people who want weapon layering, and I'm not quite certain why they've included armor layering from the beginning, but not weapon layering. Probably because they want to make it a little bit more complex to open than just simply you have to own a full set. Like, that's fair enough for the armor, but for the weapons, as soon as you buy the baseline one, then suddenly you have a full set of it. Or are they only going to do layered versions of the final version of the weapon, or they're going to do layered of each version of the weapon? So there's a lot of things to work in there, plus you have weapon decorations and all that, and how's that going to interact with that system? We know it's possible, they've done it in previous games. I'm sure there's just a lot of questions they had that they're trying to hammer out as to exactly how they want to approach it. But I have no doubt it will come in at some point. I think it'll be a well, okay. I don't think it will be a deliberately withheld feature. I think it is a deliberately withheld feature that they're holding back in order to make it appealing for people when they join it. Oh look, for once I actually talked all the way through a fight. Yian Kut-Ku is dead. Well, not dead, just captured. We're getting ready to come up on the second fight in this, so if you just wanted to see this first fight or you were having trouble with Yian Kut-Ku for some reason, tune out now. We're getting ready to jump into the next one. The next fight, I am not even really certain why they made such an emphasis on this particular mechanic. Can't see, it is a frenzied Nerscylla. Now, I like Nerscylla. I've enjoyed fighting Nerscylla. I actually think Lalabarina is a more interesting spider, but Lalabarina is substantially easier than Nerscylla. Although Nerscylla is not hard either. So far, none of the spiders have been hard. Nerscylla is not hard. Lalabarina is not hard. Rachna-Kadaki and Rise was not hard. They're cool creatures, but they're just not much of a challenge. The thing that confuses me is the introduction of the Frenzy virus on this dude. And why does it confuse me? You have some frenzied monsters that pop up in endgame, but they're not really all that necessary for you to fight. There's not a whole lot of benefit in going out of your way to hunt frenzied when you can hunt tempered and get pretty much the same benefits. I could be wrong here. Someone please fill me in what the big reason is for hunting frenzied monsters over just straight up going for tempered creatures. But I don't really see a particular reason for going out of my way to hunt frenzied creatures. Now, the thing that this did make me happy about, though, was since there's frenzied creatures, this was the first point where it was a clear, solid sign that Gore Magala was, in fact, in the game. I know they had pretty much confirmed it before the game was released, and now being at the point where I'm at, I know that he is in here. But this was the first point that was confirmation. And his stuff is pretty cool because of the fact that it inflicts you with Frenzy. And this game has two skills that work together. It's got the armor set that gives you Frenzy, and then a skill that makes it easier to cleanse Frenzy and boosts the bonus you get from having cleansed Frenzy. Don't really benefit much from that as Gun Lance, but it's a good mix set to have so that I can start working in other weapons. Like, I just recently started playing around with Charge Blade a little bit, and boy is it fun in this game. I've been enjoying playing Gun Lance. This is the first game where I really gave Gun Lance a good try. So I'm going to finish filling out the Gun Lance tree, get all the Gun Lances. But once I wrap it up, I'm probably going to end out switching the thing that I main until an expansion or a new monster comes out. Just because it's not bad, but I find things like Charge Blade more interesting. You're doing more with Charge Blade if you're playing it well. Still not as hard as people make it out to be, but you're doing a little bit more with it. Alright, well, I think I've said everything I really want to with this video. I'm going to let the rest of this plot... I don't know. There's a good mess up. Whatever, I'm just going to leave it in. See how many people get to this point. I'm going to try and put together a mediocre weapon guide series. I'm thinking I'll do 3 to 5 weapons at a time because they're only going to be like 1 minute each, so stick them together, relatively short video, and mostly meant to just be funny, like not meant to be taken seriously at all. To give you a little example of me just kind of poking fun at myself in my own playstyle, the guide for Gun Lance is press triangle and circle. Now press triangle and circle again. Keep pressing it. Press it again. Alright, once you finish that combo, hold in R2, press circle. Now repeat. So, things along those lines. It's not really meant to be a serious series. I just think it'd be something fun to do aside from everything else. Because there's not that many more videos left to cover all the monsters in the actual story quests. Like, I've got one more video for this chapter, and then that leaves 2 more chapters. And in the next chapter, I'm probably going to squeeze one whole section of it into one just relatively long video because it more or less has you run around and re-kill all the apexes again. So that will probably be just a fast-paced recap video because those fights didn't really change all that much. Spoilers, sorry. Anyway, I'll see you in that video. Everyone have a good night, and remember, if I can beat it, so can you.
This ought to put a should head back to report. Professor Fabius needs to know about this as soon as possible.